Hey guys, what's up? I'm Erin and welcome back to the channel. When you look at the headlines, it's everywhere. These recommendations that you need $500,000, $700,000, or $1 million saved up in order to retire comfortably. Yet, millions of Americans retire every single year with far less or even nothing saved, and still they manage to survive and in many cases are very comfortable. So how do they do it? Well, this video was actually inspired by one of you. Recently, I did a video on how to retire with what could be considered a significant amount of savings, and one viewer left a comment that stuck out to me. Videos should be made on how retirees without anything saved should survive. That's the majority of them. Anyone who has millions saved doesn't need a YouTube video to guide them. And they're right. So let's talk about the millions who don't have millions saved. In this video, we're going to walk through the typical American, not the millionaire you see featured in headlines. We're going to look at actual savings account balances. We're going to look at Social Security, spending patterns, income sources, and see how real people do their retirement. Let's start with the numbers because they tell a story most people don't realize. Ages 45 to 54, the median retirement savings is about $115,000. Ages 55 to 64, that number climbs to $185,000 according to the Federal Reserve's Survey of Consumer Finances. And ages 65 to 74, median retirement savings was just $200,000. These numbers are certainly a far cry from $500,000 or that typical $1 million figure you see thrown around. Yet, they do represent the typical retiree in America. Let's put that $200,000 figure into context. If you retire with around $200,000 in investments and you're following a simple 5% withdrawal rule, that's only $10,000 in income. Now, certainly that's not going to be enough to retire comfortably. And we see a lot of talk online about an early retirement. But for the typical American, if they have very little saved, if they don't have a pension and they don't have any other income streams, early retirement is generally off the table.
That's not going to happen.
That's why delaying retirement from, say, 60 to 65 or even all the way up to 70 can make a big difference. It gives your investments more time to grow, and that will give you security as an income source in retirement. It also gives your Social Security benefit time to increase if you delay claiming, and all of this spells more financial security in retirement. So here's the bigger picture. When do people actually step away from the workforce? The median retirement age in the US is 62. But here's the kicker. Nearly 60% of retirees say they stepped away earlier than planned, often because of health issues, job loss, or burnout. Now, while the average age is higher, the point here is that while we often hear financial planners encourage people to work until, say, full retirement age of 67 or all the way until 70, the reality is most Americans are not working that long. Most Americans step away from the workforce before those ages. And here's where things can get tough. If you're forced into an earlier retirement than you expected and savings hasn't been your number one priority in life, well, you very well could be retiring into a leaner lifestyle than you want or expect. That's why I have what I call the 5-year rule. So you pick your target retirement date. Maybe that's 65, but instead of saving and investing as if you'll step away from the workforce at 65, you get a little bit more aggressive. You save and invest as if you'll actually step away from the workforce at the age of 60. That way you give yourself options. If it ends up that you want to retire early, you would have the financial means to do so if you're a bit more aggressive. Or maybe you decided that you want to continue working and then you just go into retirement with a little bit more of a cushion. Or if the unfortunate thing happens and you're pushed out of the workforce earlier than expected, no matter what the reason, you have a cushion to fall back on and it's not a financial blow to your retirement plan. When we see data like 60% of Americans are stepping away from the workforce earlier than they anticipated, I think this is something we need to plan for because we never know the curveballs that life can throw at us. But we do notice when we look at retirement data that most Americans are retiring around an age in which they would be eligible for Social Security. And that brings us to our next question. When do people claim Social Security? Social Security is a true lifeline for millions of Americans. The average age when Americans start claiming benefits is about 65. Now, you can claim as early as 62 and receive a reduced benefit, or delay all the way up to the age of 70 and receive a greater benefit, but most people land right in that middle ground. This matters because the age you claim affects your check, and while you can receive maximum benefits at the age of 70, most people aren't waiting that long simply because they need the income. Now, how much is the average check? As of July 2025, the average monthly Social Security check of a retired worker is just about $2,000 or $24,000 a year. Now, if you're living on just $2,000 a month, that's going to be tight, really tight. And if you have no savings to fall back on, that can be a hard situation to be in. Let's say you're right at that median savings and you do have $200,000 invested. If you follow a 5% withdrawal, you might be able to add $10,000 a year on top of your Social Security. That brings you closer to an income of $34,000 a year as a single retiree. And while that certainly is a modest living, we'll soon see that that's not that far off from what many seniors are living or surviving on. But demographics do play a role, and most seniors aren't living alone. Only about 28% of seniors live alone. This means that the vast majority are living with someone else, whether that is a spouse, a partner, a family member, a friend. Most are not living alone, and this makes a difference, especially from a financial standpoint. Vast majority of retirees are living with a partner or a spouse, and this truly does make a difference financially when you start to factor in 2 Social Security benefits. So instead of just one $2,000 check, now you've got 2 checks totaling, say, $4,000 a month. That's roughly $48,000 a year. And once you layer in that same $200,000 in investments, you could reasonably give yourself $10,000 as a safe withdrawal from this portfolio, and suddenly you're looking at a household income of about $58,000 a year. This can be absolutely more than enough to retire comfortably and cover all of their expenses. That's why it's important to get the full picture, because if we're just looking at one income stream from Social Security of $2,000 a month, we're seeing a completely different picture. Household dynamics, whether you're living alone or with someone else, can absolutely reshape your financial picture. And this isn't just theory. It lines up almost perfectly with national data. According to the Census Bureau, the median household income for Americans age 65 and older is about $50,000 a year. And that's household income. So that means if you're married, that very well may include 2 Social Security checks. Maybe it includes a small pension. Maybe it includes investment income. On an individual level, though, the median income drops to about $30,000 a year for retirees. Right away, we can see the difference here between living alone and living with a partner. If you have multiple income streams and multiple Social Security checks coming into a household, it can make a difference and paint a brighter financial picture for your retirement. And keep in mind that these are median figures, with half of retirees living on more than that and half of retirees living on less than that. The average figure is closer to $60,000, but that is being pulled up by wealthier retirees who may have more in the way of income streams. The median figure paints a much more realistic picture of what the typical retiree is living on, and also highlights the importance of Social Security as an income source in retirement. Now let's talk about expenses. Housing is the single biggest line item in most household budgets, and here is where retirees tend to have an advantage. Nearly 80% of Americans age 65 and older own their home, meaning they're not renting. That alone can make retirement much more affordable. But here's where the data gets even more interesting. What percentage of those retirees have their home paid off? It turns out that just over 25% are still paying a mortgage, which means the majority very well are mortgage-free. And if you don't have a $1,500 mortgage payment every single month, well, suddenly that $2,000 Social Security check stretches a lot further. And for retirees who do still carry a mortgage, the numbers are more modest than you might expect. The median balance is about $72,000, and the typical monthly payment is around $800. So even though plenty of retirees are still making payments, a greater percentage have cleared this hurdle, and that gives them greater breathing room in retirement. But here's the thing, mortgages aren't the only kind of debt retirees carry. The median non-mortgage debt among retirees is about $11,000. And here's how that breaks down. We have auto loans, credit cards, student loans, personal loans, and some other debt types. Now let me give you my perspective here. If you want your retirement to be easier, at least from a financial perspective, go into retirement completely debt-free. And yes, I would say that even includes a mortgage, because once you're on a limited or a fixed income, every single debt you have chips away at your cash flow. And while it may sound alarming to hear that a third of retirees have credit card debt, keep in context that this is just one survey. And the survey asked if they had credit card debt at the time of the survey. So this also includes people who would otherwise be paying off their balances at the end of the month. They just had debt at the time of the survey. So it's not a true reflection of revolving debt. But even with that caveat, I will add my message here that if you have credit card debt, make sure that you pay it off in full every single month. And if you're not paying off your credit card balances every single month, you have no business having a credit card. When you're approaching retirement, I think it's the most ideal situation to go into it completely debt-free. So you pay off your car, you pay off your home, you pay off those credit cards and everything else that might be outstanding. And oh my goodness, at that point, your financial life in retirement will be much easier. We've talked a little bit about some income sources and we've talked about some debt sources, but income is only one side of the story. The money coming in. What really matters is how it stacks up against the money going out. Because income is not the same thing as expenses, so let's zoom out and let's see what retirees are actually spending. Spending in retirement is always a hot topic. When we're planning for retirement, so many people say, my spending isn't going to go down in retirement. And maybe that's true on an individual level. No one knows your situation better than you. But what we can say is study after study after study and real retirement data does show that spending does naturally decline as we age. It tends to peak in those early years of retirement when we see an uptick in travel and activities. But over time, we tend to spend less in areas like entertainment, travel, simply leaving the home. Once you get past the age of 75 or 80, spending has declined in nearly every single category. Now, we may notice an uptick in the category like healthcare, but it's generally offset by declines in every other category. Here are the numbers. The median spending for those age 65 and older is about $2,800 per month, or roughly $34,000 a year. The average spending for those age 65 and older is closer to $4,800 a month, or about $58,000 a year. If we want to break it down further by age group, for those ages 65 to 74, spending is just under $5,000 a month. For those 75 and older, spending drops to about $3,800 a month, almost a 19% decline. Median and average make a difference. When we're looking at the median retiree spending about $3,000 a month, or the average household, that might include higher income earners pulling up this number, that's closer to $5,000 a month. The difference between median and average is critical for this video as we're trying to understand what is most reflective of the typical retiree who has very little or maybe even nothing in savings. So for this one, we really want to focus on the median. And when you compare those median figures to what the typical payouts from Social Security are, especially when you look at a dual income earning household, well, you'll see that these numbers line up. And that's exactly how the vast majority of retirees are making it work. They're spending their Social Security benefits. Whether they have little or nothing saved, they cut back on their lifestyle, they live frugally, they live modestly, and Social Security covers most of it. And there's one more piece of context that's really important, and we can't ignore it. Not everyone fully leaves the workforce at retirement age. A significant percentage of older Americans are still working in one form or another. According to Social Security data, 68% of people aged 62 to 64 still had earnings. 47% of those aged 65 to 69 still had earnings. 30% of those ages 70 to 74, and even among those 75 to 79, 19% 7% still had earnings. Now, these individuals might not be working full-time, but this does say that they have earnings that are outside of a pension, Social Security, or investment income. And for many people, maybe this is a choice that they want to make. Maybe they enjoy the social capacity of work, so they go and seek a part-time position. For others, maybe it's out of necessity. Maybe they need additional income streams in order to make ends meet in retirement. Either way, it's a very important part of the story because many retirees with limited or no savings aren't simply surviving on Social Security. Many step away from a full-time job and then supplement their income in retirement with part-time work. And when you step back and think about it and get the full picture, it actually lines up pretty neatly. The median retiree spends about $34,000 a year, while the median senior household brings in about $50,000 a year. Now, sure, it might be modest, but it can be workable, especially if you go into retirement debt-free and mortgage-free. So at the end of the day, that's the formula for how millions of Americans are making a modest retirement work with little to nothing in savings. They're leaning heavily into Social Security. They're drawing on whatever investments they may have. They might have little to nothing in debt, and they're also supplementing with some part-time work and cutting back where necessary. Now, this is a really important message because retirement looks different on everyone. If you retire with a strong pension and combine that with Social Security, you very well may not need anything in the way of investments or savings to fund your retirement. Now, let me be very clear here. I'm not saying that you shouldn't be saving or investing. I'm just saying if Social Security combined with a pension or whatever other income streams you have cover your expenses in retirement, you may not need to pull from investments in order to fund your retirement lifestyle. I still do believe that everyone should have something in investments simply because it allows you to have freedom and flexibility and a safety net. So I think investments are essential for everyone, but you may not need a large set of investments to fund your lifestyle. And the overarching message of this video is not that you should go into retirement with $100,000 or $200,000 in investments. Far from it. I still want you to save and invest and have a greater cushion in retirement, but it is to go over how millions of retirees are making it work with this amount or far less because they have other income sources. In fact, about 78% of retirees say they feel confident they'll have enough money to live comfortably in retirement. And Social Security is the primary reason why nearly 80% of retirees, many of whom only have modest investments, can say with confidence they'll be okay. Here's the distinction I want to make. With my channel, I always believe that you should save and invest and take your financial future into your own hands. I want you to go into retirement being able to live the life of your dreams. I don't want your finances to be a limiting factor. At the same time, I think it's important to show the reality. Many people are enjoying a very comfortable, very happy retirement, even with very modest savings. And that perspective is valuable to hear. So here's the takeaway. When you strip away all the headlines and the scare tactics, retirement in America is pretty modest and pretty relatable. Most retirees don't have million-dollar portfolios and endless streams of income. Instead, what they do have are reliable Social Security benefits, perhaps a paid-off home, a modest lifestyle, and that way, they're finding a way to make it work. For millions of people, that's enough. Now, keep in mind here, my goal here is that you do not stop saving. I don't want to set the bar low, but I just want to show you the reality. You should absolutely still be saving and investing. Give yourself future options, whether that is to step away from the workforce early, maybe that's to travel, maybe it's just to spend time with your grandkids. But I think taking life into your own hands includes taking control of your finances. And I don't want you to aim for the median or to aim for average. I want you to be better than that because I want your life to be as full as you could possibly make it. So what are your thoughts? What are your goals? Leave them in a comment down below. I post new videos every single week. If you got anything at all out of this one, please give it a like. If you're new here, please consider subscribing. Or if you know of someone who might get something out of this type of content, please consider sharing. I'll see you soon. Bye. Hey guys, what's up? I'm Erin and welcome back to the Welcome back to the headlines. This lighting is killing me. I need an extension cord and everything is in boxes. So I will have my life together next week and I'm not living out of boxes then. If you could see this, I have cardboard boxes taped to my window to block out some of the light. Oh, I'm not tilting the camera up, but you get the picture. I moved in and I'm like, yeah, I'm fixing this one wall behind me so it looks like I have my life together. I don't, but this wall makes it look like I do. And that's really all that matters.